The Director of Defense Media Operation, Major General Musa Mandami, handed down the warning as former military head of state, Yakubu Gowon, advised candidates challenging the outcome of the last election to accept court verdict. The Mandami caution came a month after the Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Tukur Gusau, vowed to resist anything that will truncate democracy in Nigeria. Also, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, had threatened to crack down on potential threat to national security and warned the indigenous people of Biafra Eastern Security Network and other free groups not to test the will of the military. Kano State Governor Abdullahi Ganduje has said the All Progressive Congress and its governors have chosen Senator Godswill Akpabio as Senate President. Governor Ganduje disclosed this while speaking as guest of Governor Ben Ayade of Cross River State. According to Ganduje, the inner caucus of the APC decided that the South-South will produce the President of the Senate and no other person than the former governor of Akwa Ibom. Aside from Akpabio, others in the race include Osita Nzunazo, a senator representing Imo West Senatorial District, Uzo Ojikalu, the Senate Chief Whip, Barel Jubrain, Chairman Senate Committee on Appropriation, Ahmed Lawan, incumbent President of the Senate, Daduma Goje, former Governor of Gombe, and Adams Oshiomale, former Edo State Governor. The coalition of United Political Parties says the 10th National Assembly should give particular consideration to the principle of national unity, competency, and equity in electing the next set of its principal officers to avoid intractable distrust and crisis. The organization said every region and religion and all-round leadership capacity must be put into consideration in the choice of the leadership to give a sense of belonging to everyone in the Nigerian project. The national spokesperson for the CUPP, Mark Adebayo, who issued the advice in Abuja, said the ethno-religious configuration of Nigeria must not be ignored in the choice of the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. According to him, the National Assembly members-elect must never allow pecuniary factors to determine the choices to be made, but should consider national unity, equity, and leadership capacity. Osun State Governor Senator Ademola Adeleke has been commended for embarking on massive road rehabilitation and construction across Osun State. Those who spoke for OSBC News in separate interviews gave the commendation while speaking of the update of road rehabilitation project in the state. Oluwatobiloba Odunuga has the details.
Road infrastructure is a very important public asset as society relies on a good road system as the basis to access jobs, healthcare, education, and social connections. Osun State government, under the leadership of Governor Ademola Adeleke, recognized the role good road infrastructure plays in the developmental process of any given place and hit the ground running on assumption of office to reform the infrastructural deficits in the state. Speaking with OSBC News on the road rehabilitation projects, the Director of Highway, Ministry of Works and Transport, Engineer Idowu Bello, said the ministry is enjoying full support of the governor and expressed support of Governor Ademola Adeleke in making life easy for the people through the construction, reconstruction, and rehabilitation of roads across the state. He, however, called for the support of the people in the area of maintenance, especially by putting a stop to indiscriminate dumping of refuse in gutters, culverts, and waterways.
I want to appreciate Governor Adeleke. He said wherever the masses is in need of anything or something is disturbing them in terms of infrastructure, he has given us go ahead before we secure approval. For instance, we have some damaged covered failed ones across the state for years. Immediately he came on board, he told us anywhere they call our attention to any needs like that, we should quickly respond. We need the support of our people too. You get some area, you see some people dumping refuse inside the cover to get it blocked. By the time you know when the rain is falling, there won't be any way for passage of water. The surface of the road we just fill up with flood.
Osbc News visit to the site of some of the road rehabilitation in Oshogbo, including Jomake area, Olutimei Estate area, Okeayepe, Costain area, among others, shows that work is already in progress at various sites as drainages were being fixed. Residents of the areas who could not hide their joy, including Mr. Claudius Lufadeju, Mr. Kamil Alimi, Mr. Ayinde Jamaldin and Mrs. Mutiat Okwade, among others, were full of appreciation to Governor Ademola Adeleke for keeping to his electoral premises, noting that good development will start surging again in their areas.
We thank God for today that we have a governor in Osun State do better thing to us in this road construction. All you helping.
The road which governor do for this place, we thank God for Ademola Adeleke.
We want to appreciate governor, our governor. God will help him.
I'm feeling well. In fact, I'm very happy that our road will be good, better than before. So I'm very happy. I pray for our governor that God will be with them.
They express strong conviction that with the rate of development being witnessed in every sector, Osun State is finally on the path of huge economic prosperity, and that in no distant time, the state will be standing shoulder to shoulder among other developed states in Nigeria. Oluwa Tobiloba Odunuga, Osbc News.
Osun State Governor Senator Ademola Adeleke has felicitated with the Atauja of Oshogbo Oba Jimo Olanipekun Oyetunji Laiwo Oye II on the occasion of his birthday. Governor Adeleke, in a congratulatory message signed by spokesperson Malam Olawale Rasheed, commended Oba Olanipekun for his enduring contributions to the peace and progress of the state and Nigeria as a whole. The governor will join family, friends, and well-wishers across the globe to celebrate an exceptional traditional leader that exemplifies service to humanity, praised Oba Olanipekun's devotion to the promotion of culture and tradition. Senator Adeleke acknowledged the frontline monarch's transformational leadership, which evidently manifests in the infrastructural and economic upscale that Oshogbo people enjoys since he assumed the stool of the ancient town. The governor prays for God's sustained guidance and strength for Oba Olanipekun in furtherance of rendering qualitative service to the peace and growth of not only Oshogbo but Osun State as a whole. The United Kingdom court has sentenced former Deputy Senate President of Nigeria, Ike Ekere, to 9 years and 8 months in prison for an organ trafficking plot. The court also sentenced his wife Beatrice to 4 years, 6 months, while the medical doctor who acted as the middleman in the plot, Dr. Obi Naubeta, is sentenced to 10 years and his medical license was also suspended. The report says in March this year, the jury found the criminals conspired to bring 21-year-old Lagos street trader to London to exploit him for his kidney. It added that the conviction is the first verdict of its kind under Modern Slavery Act. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has upheld the conviction and 8-year sentence imposed on former chairman of Pension Reform Tax Team, Abdul Rashid Maina, for laundering about 2.1 billion naira. In a judgment today, a 3-member panel of the court unanimously affirmed the November 8, 2021 judgment given by Justice Okolabang of the Federal High Court of Abuja, convicting and sentencing Maina. Justice Alfreda Williams Daudu, in the lead judgment, affirmed the various interlocutory rulings delivered in the course of the trial at the Federal High Court, which Maina appealed against. Justice William Daudu, who reserved the 2 issues identified for determination against Maina, held that it was not denied fair hearing by the trial court and that the prosecution proved its case beyond reasonable doubt. The suspended Adamawa State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Hudu Yunusa Ari, who is currently being probed by the police, has had his passport seized as part of preconditions for his administrative bail, while he has also been restricted with Federal Capital Territory. It is also gathered that a senator stood shorty for Yunusa Ari, who was interrogated and detained for 3 days at the force headquarters. Also released are 2 commissioners of the Independent National Electoral Commission and others officials undergoing interrogation at the force headquarters Louis Ellis out, Abuja, in connection with the controversy surrounding the April 15 supplementary election in Adamawa State. The island commissioners and other officials under probe are also mandated to deposit their passport administrative bail. The indicted officials, including Yunusa Ari, agreed by the police election planning, monitoring and evaluation team headed by the Assistant Inspector General of Police and head of Interpol Nigeria, Gilbert Umar, and other members of the management team, including the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba. The World Health Organization says the number of weekly reports from COVID-19 is declining following the spike in China after lifting restriction. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus at the 15th meeting of the IHR Emergency Committee on COVID-19 pandemic said it was very pleasing to see the downward trend had continued. According to the organization, for each of the past 10 weeks, reported death has been lowest since March 2020, adding that the sustained trend has allowed life to return to normal in most countries and increase the capacity of health system to cope with potential resurgences and burden of post-COVID-19 conditions. A total of 130 stranded Nigerians have arrived in Nigeria from Port Sudan. The first batch of Nigerians evacuees from Egypt consists of 130 Nigerians, including 128 females and 2 males. In a video via Twitter, the Nigerian ambassador to the Republic of Sudan, Safi Olanio, said it has been tough, expressing joy that some of the residents are among the returnees. Olanio noted that the airlift was arranged by the federal government. The federal government has been advised to invest in Nigeria's education system and make teaching and learning more conducive in the country. Those who gave the advice were speaking with Osbc News against the backdrop of Nigerian students recently evacuated from Sudan, said government must reposition education sector and make it attractive to youth. Osbc reporter Oluchi Amuda now completes the story.
Nigerians heaved a sigh of relief with the news of the evacuation and safe return of hundreds of citizens, mostly students, fleeing the fighting in Sudan after days of delay that left many stranded in the desert and at the Egyptian border. According to a report, the Sudan fighting broke out after a month of escalating tension between the country's 2 military and a rival paramilitary group that has so far killed over 500 people and displaced hundreds of thousands. Several countries are racing to evacuate their citizens from the troubled nation, though millions remain there amid a fragile ceasefire. The head of Nigeria's Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabirewewa, had earlier announced that more than 3 million Nigerians are living in Sudan. She noted that the evacuees are not refugees, but those who went to study in pursuit of knowledge. Reacting to this development, some Nigerians, including Mr. Aderemi Adiagbo and Mr. Sheung Owosheni, spoke on the need for the government at all levels to reposition the country's education sector and make it attractive for the youth. They maintain that Nigeria must start living up to its name of being the giant of Africa.
There is need to do more when it comes to the issue of educational system in Nigeria. It is not perfect, it is not the best so far, but we can still give it to Nigeria. But when it comes to the issue of getting education outside the country, I don't see any crime in that, because we equally have other developed countries that do come to Nigeria to come and study. It is not only Nigeria that go to other countries to go and study. So we should look at it as a development that people go out to get better education. In Nigeria, we have a best and good institution that can equally give you what you want. But notwithstanding, some people still want to add value. They still want to go a little bit higher, which is, there is no crime. The moment they have their money and they can spend it, we are not yet there. We can still do better in our educational system.
We have not met up to the standard of UNESCO that prescribes some percentage, good percentage of our budgetary allocation to education. Unfortunately, successive administrations and even the administration that is outgoing right now have not been able to prioritize education. which is unfortunate. And that's why you have a whole lot of graduates being churned out every year and not being productive, okay? Because education goes beyond just lecturing in class and then getting the certificate. It has to do with a whole lot of things.
The respondents equally tasked the government to provide a conducive environment for the youth to achieve their potentials, which they noted would help in reducing the menace of huge migration of Nigerians out of the country in search of greener pastures. Oluchi Amuda, Osbc News.
The flag officer in charge of Eastern Naval Command, Rear Admiral Lushola Oluwabire, has warned sea pirates operating on the waterways to stay clear or be ready to be smoked out by force. He gave the warning during his maiden inspection of bays and units of the Naval Command in NOS Jubilee at Ikorabasi local government area. He urged the commander to rejig the operations of the command and ensure that the boats are out there for effective coverage of the waterways. The flag officer in charge will urge the command to be more alert, as they were always been doing, calling on the public to give the command useful information that will be useful in apprehending the criminal elements in the society. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has confirmed the fire incident at its office in Enugu State. EFCC head of media Wilson Owejere, in a statement available to newsmen, confirmed the incident. Reports say one of the buildings within the zonal command was consumed by the inferno. Incident which occurred today was triggered by a surge in public power supply, and that the ensuing inferno was later put out through the combined efforts of Enugu State and Federal Fire Services, while disclosing that no life was lost in the incident. Now welcome to our sports segment. Golden Eaglet coach Uluka Ubade has tagged his players to be more clinical and ruthless in front of goal as they tackled their South African counterparts into the run in a quarterfinal sport. Oluwaleti Ojewumi has detail from the world of sports.
Their 1-0 defeat to Morocco in their second group game of the ongoing CAF Under-17 AFCON in Algeria, Golden Eaglet coach Nduka Ubade has tagged his players to be more clinical and ruthless in front of Ogbochi own goal, which ended Morocco progression into the knockout stage, with the Nigerians having to battle South Africa for the next available slot. Just like their first game against Zambia, the Eaglets enjoyed better possession with 64% of the ball and 27 shots, but their dominance failed to earn them the win. Nigeria remains second in Group B with 3 points and just ahead of their next opponent, South Africa, on goals difference. Both countries will meet in their last group game tomorrow. Meanwhile, young Bafana head coach Dekan Krayi says his team will target a point in their last Group B games against Nigeria as they seek to move to the next round in Algeria. Also, Leicester City manager John Smith has said Kelechi Iheanacho could still return to action before the end of the season. Iheanacho sustained a growing injury in Leicester City's 1-1 draw against Leeds United last month. Smith revealed afterwards that the Nigerian international may not feature again for the Foxes this season. The Englishman has, however, provided a more positive update on the forward. Iheanacho has scored 5 goals and provided 4 assists in 26 league appearances for Leicester this season. Linus Williams has urged Anthony Joshua to avoid any damage in a warning against fighting Deontay Wilder. Joshua is in line to face Wilder in December in Saudi Arabia following positive talks between the clans. It will finally bring an end to years of debate after failed talks for the pair to fight in the past. But British boxing legend Lewis believes AJ is best off leaving the boot on the shelf for his own good. Joshua, 33, beat Jermaine Franklin, 29, in his April return in what at the end hoped would be the first in the trio boots in 2023. But that plan fails. Organizer in the Middle East launched negotiation for AJ to face Wider, who is 37 at the end of this year. Oluwaranti Ojewumi for Osbc News.
And out of some foreign stories, Mali's military junta has announced that a referendum on new constitution will be held in West African nation on the 18th of next month. Sarah Omidele has details of this and more from the foreign desk.
Government spokesman Colonel Abdullahi Magaya said the country is called upon to decide on the constitution project next month, missing previous deadline of March 19. The new constitution is the first major step in plans the military has invoked to justify continuing to govern until 2024, following the overthrow of former President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta in August 2020. Maiga says elections are due to be held in February next year to restore a civilian government in Bamako, where voters will have to respond by a yes or no question on the referendum. In another development, Burkina Faso's interim president Ibrahim Traoré said Russia has become a key strategic ally, but denied that Russian mercenaries are supporting Burkina forces in their fight against armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIL. Ouagadougou's relations with Moscow are in the spotlight as anti-French sentiment rises in parts of the region. In an interview with the newsman, Traoré was asked about Burkina Faso's international allies in the conflict that has killed thousands of people and displaced about 2.5 million in the broader Sahel region over the past decade, and he said the departure of the French army does not mean that France is not an ally, but we have strategic allies too. Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has expressed frustration at the United States' continued effort to extradite WikiLeaks founder and Australian citizen Julian Assange, who has been in a high-security United Kingdom prison for the past 4 years as he fights the case. Albanese, who is in the UK for King Charles II's coronation, said he was frustrated there had not been yet a diplomatic resolution to the issue and concerned about the mental health of the now 51-year-old. Sarah Omidele, Osbc News.
To end the major report on Osbc TV, here again are the main points. The Nigerian military has warned against plans to sabotage the handover power. Governor Ademola Adeleke receives commendation overruled rehabilitation. Former Deputy Senate President Ikekere Madu get 10 years jail time. On the following scene, we brought you a report that Mali military junta holds constitution referendum next month. That ends the major report on Osbc TV. It was edited by Michael Adeniyi. Babatunde Bolatito is my name. Good night.